What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Damien Reads Comics. Today we're going to do a review of the Black Dahlia hardcover. I don't think I've actually ever seen a deluxe of this or single issues of this. I think it's just a straight story. What I mean by a straight story, it does have 5 chapters in it, but it's just like a regular story in indie. And like I said, it is a hardcover. What's weird about it, it's not glossy, it's not matte, but I don't really like this kind of feel to it. I don't know the name of it. I don't know if you guys can see, but like any little thing that happens to it, it marks it. But anyway, like I said, the Black Dahlia hardcover, it is published by Archaia. I don't know if it's Archaia Comics, Archaia Publishing. It just says Archaia. It has 176 pages, and like I said, it has 5 chapters in it. One of the chapters is like 3 pages. I don't know why they did that. But it says published by Archaia. Just Archaia, okay. So it's based on a novel by James Ellroy. So I guess James Ellroy wrote a book first, and then they made it into a novel. From a novel, and then they made it into a graphic novel. Adapted by Matz and David Fincher. Illustrated by Matt. Jesus, I'm sorry, the glare is getting to me. Illustrated by Miles Hyman. Lettered by Darren Bennett. Designed by Scott Newman. U.S. Edition Associate Editor Krissa Rosa. And U.S. Edition Editor Sierra Hahn. Now, I do want to say U.S., that part right there, because when you're reading this, some of it, like, I guess in the translation, kind of comes off like, wait, what? What are you trying to say there? So you kind of have to try to fill in the blanks with it. It's not like it's unreadable, but it's like, wait, what were you trying to say there? There was a few times where I had to go back and read it like 3 or 4 times and be like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing. Okay. And it also does have beautiful sewn binding. It actually has a beautiful eye to it, as you guys can see. It is actually awesome. For it being a book this small, like, that eye is beautiful. Now, I picked this up. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, serial killers and nothing like that, but I do know the story of Elizabeth Short and her being the Black Dahlia. So I kind of wanted to know what this was about, because I know that story, and I wanted to know the kind of things that they put in here. Now, the things that they put in here, I don't know if that story is true or not. Like, I know everything that there is to know about the Black Dahlia, but not who she was associated with and things like that. So, I mean, whether it is true or not, maybe it's fiction, who knows? But this was a very interesting story, and I quite enjoyed it. So why don't we go ahead and crack it open, go over it, and see what you guys think. And hopefully, I have one question in this book, and I don't know if I can ask it, because if I ask that question, it kind of gives away the twist at the end, kind of the plot at the end. And so I do have a question, but I think I'm just going to kind of leave it unanswered. I might actually ask it. Who knows? When we get there, if I get to that page, I'll ask it. But we'll see what happens. Let's go ahead and crack this open and see what you guys think. Alrighty, guys. Let's go ahead and crack this open and kind of go through the story a little bit. I like the end pages. They're nice and black. You got a weird kind of title page. Actually, this isn't even a title page. I don't even know what this is called. But then you got the title page right here. And then you got the people that, that worked on this. Shout out to them. You can't ever discredit anybody that worked on the book. For the longest time, when it said James Ellroy and Matz and David Fincher, I thought that they were the only people that worked on the book. Even before that, when it said a book, like Frank Miller worked on Sin City, I thought it was just Frank Miller. He did the book. He did everything in the book. And no, there's a lot of people that worked on it, but he was the kind of like the artist and things like that. But so anyway, that being said, you can't ever discredit the people that worked on the book. But anyway, we start with chapter 1, Fire and Ice. Why is it called Fire and Ice? Well, you get introduced to two police officers. You get introduced to this guy right here. His name is Bucky Blanchard. Blanchard? Yeah, Bleichard. You get introduced to Bucky Blanchard, and it's his first day in warrants in Los Angeles Department, 1946, and he's kind of being introduced to a whole bunch of people, and he's with his partner Lee Blanchard. I know, right? Anyway, And so we get introduced to these two characters. They're in Warrants Division. They always wanted to be in Warrants, and it kind of goes into their backstory of how they met. It was during like the Zoot Suit riots, and there were patrolmen at the time. They knew of each other before this because they were both boxers, heavyweight boxers. One was called Lee the Fire Blanchard, and the other one was called Bucky Ice the Iceman or Ice Blanchard. So they knew of each other because of the boxing thing, and because of their boxing thing, they got into the police thing or the police department, and from the police department they got into warrants. And this is them kind of, or this is because this story is kind of mainly told through Bucky Blanchard. And he kind of, he's kind of reminiscing on how he met, not really reminiscing, but kind of telling you the story of how him and his partner were not really partners. They didn't even get along with each other, but how they kind of worked together back in the day. And then they came into, this is them doing the boxing and stuff, and how they became partners and stuff. So that's kind of where this kind of started. And it also introduces a female. Real quick, before I go into any further, I think this was a used book, or was supposed to be new when I bought it from Amazon. And this one page here came ripped up. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. And it's not even ripped, it's just kind of, I don't know. Anyway, so it does tell the backstory of, a little bit of a backstory of Bucky Blanchard, Lee Blanchard, and about this female named Kay. Kay is kind of seeing Lee, but they're not really like seeing each other. They're just kind of friendly, not having sexual relationship type of thing. And it explains how the three kind of make a love triangle where, like, when they go to the movies, Kay kind of sits in between them and holds both their hands. So it's kind of a love thing, but they never have sex with each other, meaning Bucky doesn't have sex with Kay and Lee doesn't have sex with her. So it's not that kind of relationship. It's like a good, friendly type of thing. And it explains all this, which is actually a nice little back detail on all these people. And it talks about how there was going to be a fight between fire and ice for Bucky to come and be part of the Warrants, and how they ended up being partners, which is a good story. And then we move on to chapter 2, Partners. So now finally that they're in Warrants, they get, tasked with a whole bunch of, not missions, but jobs from from the boss. And they do go out and do jobs and stuff like that. Now, there's a lot of little things in here that I don't know if they make sense or not. Like, not make sense, but if they're relevant to the story or not. Some of it is, some of it isn't. But it kind of tells the backstory a little bit about this guy named Bobby DeWitt, and about Kay kind of being with Bobby, but not being part of. So there was this big bank robbery that happened. And that bank robbery, there was 4 guys. 2 of them got killed, and then 2 of them got away. One was supposedly Bobby. He got caught and went to prison eventually. And then there was Kay. She was there to kind of testify, and that's supposedly where she fell in love with Lee, and that's how they met. But Bobby plays a big part in this later on to kind of drive the story further. And then they get tasked with missions and things like missions, not really missions, but doing their job. And they do go on around their job, where they take down a whole bunch of people. It's nothing too serious like that, but it kind of goes into the backstory of how Kay's with both of them, but not really with both of them. And eventually they get a call, not really a call, but they get a big mission about this guy named Johnny Nash. And they go and try to find him. And, supposedly Lee has a whole bunch of hookups because of this guy named Benny Siegel, if you guys know who he is. He's a big mob guy. But that doesn't really play a big part of it. But he gets tips and stuff. So they go out looking for... I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to show that part. But they go out and look for this guy Nash. When they finally go out and find Nash... that's when we finally get introduced to the actual Black Dahlia murder here. Like, we're already, 50 pages in, there's 176 pages. We're 3/4 of the way into this book, and we finally get introduced to the Black Dahlia, her murder. they find her. When they go and try to find Nash, they're at the window and they see a whole bunch of people gathering and their bosses, and they finally see the Black Dahlia murder. And with that Black Dahlia murder, Lee becomes so focused on it, like he wants to know what happened. He gets so psychotic to the thing with it, like everything else doesn't matter to him, and he's just so into it, and so is Bucky as well. They get both into the case, but Lee more than anything, and they're trying to figure out who it was. But Bucky's he's like, hey, we should still go after this Nash guy. Like, he's still out there, he's still hurting people. But Lee's like, no, we gotta look for whoever did this to this girl. Let's give it a week, and then we'll go after Nash. And he lies about some things to his partner and to the LAPD. So they finally start going out, asking questions here and there, and they go and see the doctor, and he kind of explains everything, how she was tortured, and I'm not going to go into it, and how she was, killed and things like that. And it explains right here how she was called the Black Dahlia, because of the dresses she used to wear. It kind of reminded people of the Blue Dahlia, and because she was certain things led to her being called the Black Dahlia. So they were going back and forth with a whole bunch of things, and then they finally got a tip saying that she had a friend, and Bucky goes and sees that friend, and she, when he's doing that, he sees that Elizabeth, Betty, had another friend named Linda. So he kind of goes after trying to figure out who this Linda girl is, because they're the last people that seen her, right? So he's at this bar asking a bartender about Linda, about the whole Black Dahlia murder. And that's when a lookalike of Elizabeth Short is kind of there and walks away. And that's when Bucky gets so into it, like, oh my God, that looks exactly like the Black Dahlia, Elizabeth Short. So he follows her and eventually finds out that she was also a friend of Elizabeth Short. Her name is Madeline. Madeline was also a friend of Elizabeth Short. And he kind of talks to her, and because who her father is, she doesn't want her name in the papers and things like that. And he's like, okay, you know what, that's fine, but we got to meet up. She's like, what is this? I haven't met any lately, but I'll do it. Well, let's see. You ever do it with a man? Because supposedly she did this sexual thing with Elizabeth. And he asked, you ever do it with a man? I haven't met any lately, but I'll do it with you to keep my name at the papers. And then he's like, tomorrow night, pick me up at 8. Here's the address. It was kind of weird. Like, they were doing that just to take their name out of it. So finally he goes and he picks her up. But before he does, he meets Emmett Sproggs. Sproggs. I think it's just Sprogg, actually. And he finds out he's a rich guy that has a whole bunch of property. He had a good friend that saved him from the war named Georgie. And he just kind of goes into it. He kind of finds out a little bit about the mom, Ramona, the sister Martha. And eventually, after dinner, they go to a motel. And they kind of, Madeline and him start making love. And she kind of opens up to him a little bit about how she knew Elizabeth Short and things like that. And finally, they track down Linda. They bring her in. They talk about how, she's young. She's 15 years old. But how she made a movie with Elizabeth Short. And it was a nude movie, a porno pretty much. It was like a sex scene between Elizabeth and her. And how they did it in Tijuana because they knew it was illegal and things like that. But for some reason, they think that she's lying. And come to find out, eventually, she was lying about it. Here's them watching it and things like that. And that's when, what's his name, Lee leaves. And he's like, you know what, this guy that did the movie, he has to come, he has to go down with it. So he goes after them, or after the guy that made the movie, supposedly. And the bosses show up, and I can't even show that one. The bosses show up and tell him not to and things like that. So eventually we found out again that Nash guy that they were looking for killed another person, and Bucky gets mad at Lee because they didn't track him down. And a whole bunch of things happen with Nash. Like, you don't even see it, but you hear about it. But he gets shot, he gets taken down too. But not before he took down 2 other people, which kind of sucks. So eventually, Lee becomes so obsessed with the thing that he eventually like leaves the department, and because he leaves the department and he goes somewhere because he's kind of running away, I guess you can say. They think he's running away because of that Bobby D. White is in jail and getting ready to come out. That Bobby D. White is actually an important character. But as you can see here, when Bucky goes to the motel room that Lee was staying in, he sees how obsessed he was with the Black Dahlia murder. It was just so crazy with, how much he was into it. And this is that thing, I heard about this too, that the police department received a whole bunch of like identifying like driver's license, social security number, a black book of the Black Dahlia, but it was like all doused with gasoline so they couldn't pull any prints. I heard about that, I read about that. So yeah, they put that in here. They, went down the list and nothing came up. And it was about this time where you kind of learn more about Bobby DeWitt and Lee. And the more I don't want to talk about this towards the end, but I do want to say this. During this whole time, Bucky is still sleeping with Madeline, but he eventually starts calling her Elizabeth. It's kind of gross that he's kind of like into a girl that looks like Elizabeth, having seen her only dead and murdered the way she was. Like, he's into that. It was kind of like, I don't know. At first I was like, okay, I don't understand at all. I don't get it. It was kind of weird. And so, yeah, so certain things start happening. It kind of starts telling you about the story of who Lee really was, why he went to Tijuana, because when he left, he went there, why he went to Tijuana, what he did to pretty much to Bobby. See, if I start giving this away, it's going to give plot twist of who Lee was. And I don't want to give that part away. So let me put it this way. Lee he was a cop, but he wasn't a clean cop. He wasn't a good cop. I will say that. And the reason he goes to Tijuana has a big, interesting thing. It is to go after Bobby. But what happens there, you find out a whole bunch of information about who Bobby was, why he went there, what he did, if he was involved in certain other things. And then you eventually find out more. This is Bucky going to Tijuana and finding all this out. I'm going to kind of flip through it a little bit because I don't want to give any spoilers. But the last part of this segment, Kay and Madeline. So eventually Bucky stops seeing Madeline for some reason. It tells you in here. I just don't want to put it out there. And he gets really close to Kay. They eventually end up getting married, as you can see there. But something happens where he finds something, and when he tries to talk about it with Kay again, it kind of separates them a little bit, and their marriage starts kind of going sideways. And when that starts happening, he goes and sees Madeline again. And this is when you find out I'm sorry, hold on. Oh, there was actually 6 chapters. I thought I said 5. This last chapter kind of gives away a lot of spoilers. And I will flip through it, but I'm not going to talk about the story so much. But let's just put it this way. In this, it kind of it does tell you who the murderer was. But they don't ever say it publicly, because if they did, certain things would happen. So to us, we don't know who still did it, but supposedly the police department did. We find out some stuff about Madeline. She was the real, like, not only her, but her mom was involved somehow. Her dad was involved somehow. Georgie was involved somehow. The question I really wanted to ask, and let's see if I can flip through it. I know I'm not supposed to. Actually, yeah, there's a little bit of nudity. It got to a point right there where Madeline knew that Bucky was so obsessed with the Black Dahlia that she started dressing like her when they went to go see each other, which is kind of disgusting, actually. Like, how can this guy be obsessed with the dead girl and he just wants to have sex with her? Anyway, so what I want to talk about is, did I miss it? I think it's the next page. Okay, right here. So we find out that Madeline is actually not Emmett's biological daughter. I think it's actually his half daughter. No, it's his half daughter. No, it's stepdaughter. Actually, it's only his stepdaughter. Actually, yeah, it's his stepdaughter because Madeline is actually Georgie's daughter. Now, I'm not going to say who, this does say who killed Madeline, or I'm sorry, who killed Elizabeth Short, who was the killer, who was all involved. But what it doesn't really explain, I don't know why it did it or didn't, but like I said, so as you can see here, Emmett's kind of groping on Madeline, and it explains that she's actually Georgie and Ramona's, her actual mom, and Emmett's wife, Ramona's daughter, and not Emmett's. So he's kind of with her. But right here, it made no sense. Georgie came to Daddy and said, "Give me that girl, or he'll tell the whole world about daddying me." So he was going to tell the whole world about Emmett and Madeline. And what didn't make sense to me at all was that I looked around for Betty, left notes for her. Then that Sunday night, she called Daddy. Yeah, she called. Daddy offered her money to date a nice man he knew. You see, we thought Georgie just wanted Betty for sex, which doesn't make sense to me because supposedly Madeline is a splitting image of Betty, which is, Elizabeth Short. So why did George want to, guys, if I say, obviously, why would she think that George wanted Betty for sex? That makes no sense because you look exactly like his daughter, right? You're his daughter. That's weird. But then when you later find out what happens, you still ask the question, why Betty? Why this? It made that part is the only part that made no sense to me. And I was like, if you looked like the daughter, why wouldn't you just let her go? I don't know. So there's a lot of twists and turns here at the end that I don't want to spoil. Let me see if you do find some stuff out about Martha, or not. Yeah, you find stuff out about Martha, which was Madeline's sister. She kind of explains everything to Bucky. He kind of has a conversation with Kay and finds out more stuff about Lee. Can't flip through that one. He goes and talks to Ramona, which you find out more information. And then at the end, it's kind of a happy ending, but not really, because at the end, Bucky kind of leaves the department, and when he goes and looks for Kay, he finds out she's not there, and he goes and looks for her because he finds out that she's pregnant with his kid. So overall, it was a good story. It left me maybe one unanswered question, but it filled everything else in, and it was an absolutely good story. I will say this though. Here's about the authors, and here's the end page and the back of the book. I will say this though, even though it's called The Black Dahlia and it was supposedly about Elizabeth Short, it didn't really deal with Elizabeth Short. It even mentioned it actually right here. Hold on, let me see if I can flip through it real quick. Right here, it said, let's see. So I'm gonna kind of go like this. Started rolling. This person started talking, rolling, and nobody ever mentioned Elizabeth Short or the Black Dahlia murder case. Like, it got to the part where you find out who did what and all things like that. But overall, this story is not really about Elizabeth Short. Like, it does say who did what to her and everything like that. But the story in itself is not really about, the Black Dahlia. It's more about Bucky, his life, his friendship with Lee, his messing around, him getting married. It's almost like a love story, and it really doesn't have anything to do with the Black Dahlia, which was kind of weird because that's the reason I picked this up in the first place. Anyway, let's go ahead and do the rating and see what you guys think, and we can go from there. Alrighty, guys, so a quick recap of the book we just reviewed. It was called The Black Dahlia hardcover edition, published by Archaia. I don't know if you guys want to say Archaia or Archaia. Anyway, it does have sewn binding. There we go. Sewn binding. 176 pages, and it does have 6 chapters, not 5. I think I said 5 earlier. So what do I give this as a rating? The overall story was very, very interesting. It kept me in. I was like, oh, okay, what's going on here? Okay, this and okay, that. Like I said, it doesn't really have to do much about Elizabeth Short. Obviously, how can it do about her if she, passed away, right? But it doesn't have to really do with her murder. Although we do get to find out, who did what and things like that. It's more about the story of Bucky and his friendship and, his love interest and his life in general. So overall, I think this is more of a love story more than anything, in my opinion. So while I enjoyed the story very much, I actually really did enjoy the story. I didn't like the art that was used in it, like the facial expressions. Let me see if I can see one thing, like find one where you can be like, okay, like right here. I'm gonna show you guys this page, even though we just kind of went over it. There is no facial expressions whatsoever, so it just didn't do it for me. The art didn't do it for me whatsoever in this. It didn't work. This is one of those instances where the story and the art did not match, in my opinion. And so, like, while I did enjoy the book very much, and I actually highly recommend you guys actually read this, it wasn't enough for me to be like, oh, this is an absolute masterpiece. No, it really wasn't. So initially, I wanted to give it a 2. Because of the art, because of certain things that, it was fictional characters. But the more I thought about it, because when I finished it, I was like, okay, it didn't answer this, it didn't answer that. But the more and more I thought about it after I read it, it answered pretty much everything minus one thing. And if you guys ever read that thing, I hope you guys know what I'm talking about. Because I wish I can ask or tell you guys this, because if I tell you guys about a certain character and ask more questions about him, I'll spoil the ending, and I don't want to do that. But that's the only thing that kind of left me. Okay, so definitely I'm going to give this a 3. I'm definitely going to give it another reread. I know what's going to happen. I know who's involved. I think the second time around when I do the reread, I think it's more of an enjoyable one because it's a very enjoyable story. But after that, if it's still a 3, I might end up getting rid of it. It's a good story. I am going to give it that. It covers a lot of stuff. It goes into background of the character. It gives a little bit of info who he is, what he's dealing with. There's not so many elements to the point where you're like, who is this? Who is this person? Like every single time a person gets introduced, you kind of know about them a little bit more and or what they do. The bosses, of of the police department that are in charge. I mean, you know about Lee, his background when you read the book. Bucky, his background when you read the book. You know about Kay. You know how she got introduced. You know about Madeline. You know about Linda. Like, you know about, Emmett, George, Ramona, Martha. You know about them all in some way, shape, or form. So it does give that much detail to where you're not like, or, who is this person? What is this? And I do like that they, it was during the time of the Black riots and things like that, or, the Zoot riots. And so I do like that they included that in here in like kind of like an Easter egg. I like how they kind of cameoed Benny Siegel, which was kind of cool because this is in Los Angeles. I just like the little elements that they put into it. I just didn't enjoy the art whatsoever. And if they would have done the art different, I probably would have given this a 4 actually. But yeah, I'm giving it a 3. Anyway, guys, that's it for the review. I hope you guys liked the review. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the book. Hope you guys liked the review. If you guys did, leave a like. I'd really appreciate that. If you guys read this book, now that I'm kind of saying this, I haven't seen a review of this book online, so I'm the first to say yay for me, right? But anyway, if you guys read this book, let me know if you guys liked it. Let me know if you guys didn't. Don't give any spoilers for anybody that haven't read it. And for those of you that haven't read it, I don't suggest you guys come in and watch these reviews all the way through because you're gonna get something spoiled. So anyway, for the people that have read this, let me know if you guys liked it. Let me know if you guys didn't. Let me know if you guys know what I'm talking about of that one unanswered question. All that being said, guys, if you guys have any recommendations on what I should read next, let me know in the comments down below or in the comments. I'll definitely check them out. If I want to read it, I'll definitely check it out. If it's something that I have, I'll let you guys know. And if it's something I'm not interested in, I'll let you guys know as well. All that being said, guys, if you guys haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps my channel out. Especially now that I'm getting subscribers. I know I'm getting views at least and getting likes, so that's kind of helping here and there. So all that being said, guys, I'll push to this side. Take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you guys on the next one.